friends, today we're going back, like way back in time and overseas, over to Greece, and diving in to the chilling story of Mariam Soulakiotis. Mariam was a woman of God on the outside, but behind the covenant walls, she was a twisted cult leader accused of extortion, abuse, and even murder. How did this nun turn faith into fear? Join me on today's episode of Cold-Blooded Serial as we explore the disturbing case of Mariam Soulakiotis, the evil nun. In Greece, she's known as the Nun of Death. As always, I like to start with a backstory of the person I'm discussing, right? Because this story is so old, there wasn't a lot of information on her childhood. So I will share with you what I was able to find. Mariam Soulakiotis was born in 1883. Yes, friends, when I said that we were going back in time, I really meant it. We are going back to the 1800s, okay? So, Mariam Soulakiotis was born in 1883 into an impoverished family. And her daily survival was working on the family farm from dawn to dusk. Yeah, that's a lot of hours. But, like many young girls at the time, the demands of agricultural life shaped her childhood. And that was all I'm not even kidding. That was all I was able to find on her childhood, okay? So now we're gonna start to, I don't wanna say more recent times because obviously this is not, but we're gonna fast forward to when she decides to become a nun, okay? So let's get started. Mariam became a nun around the year 1900 for the Greek Orthodox Church, and she grew close to a bishop named Matthew. In 1923, the Greek Orthodox Church decided to come into line with the rest of the world and adopted the Gregorian calendar of Pope Gregory XIII. Father Matthew Kaprophagus denounced the teachings of the old calendarist, and he formed a new sect called the New Calendarist on the hills of Attica, where they can continue to follow the Julian calendar formulated by Julius Caesar 45 years before Christ. In 1927, Father Matthew, who was 66 years old, built a convent and a monastery to provide a place of worship to his followers. Mariam was enamored with Father Matthew and his alternative ideology, and she left her family and her job to help work in the convent at the age of 23 years old. Mariam quickly gained more responsibility due to Father Matthew's declining health. She was then promoted to the position of abbess in the new church, which means she was in charge of all of the nuns. And this is a huge responsibility for someone so young. So I'm pretty sure some of his older nuns were pretty unhappy with it because, if they've been with him for years or decades, and here comes this new young girl taking over, that probably makes a few of them a little bitter. So, Mariam was in charge of daily management and recruiting new members for the convent when Father Matthew passed away in 1939. By this time, though, she had earned a reputation for being the ruthless nun. She's just everything's by the book. I'm very strict. You have to listen to me because I'm the one in charge. But she's not yet considered evil, just ruthless. Now they call her Mother Superior. So with Mother Superior Mariam in charge, the convent now focused on acquiring financial investments. Listen, people will do the most evil acts for money. You're about to see just how evil she gets. So, Mariam advertised her monastery as a free treatment center for tuberculosis patients. And then, once a patient arrived, they would be forced to give up any money or property that they owned, or risk punishment, which could be seen as torture. Yeah, like cult vibes, right? New members also had to vow to rid themselves of evil and show commitment to their belief in this new church. How? Well, they had to confess all of their sins, they had to fast, and participate in periods of silence. Not so bad, right? I mean, you fast long enough, you lose a few pounds, looking good, right? Maybe some of the secrets or sins that you had on your chest has now relieved you of that burden. But with the strict nun in charge, Mariam would use heinous methods to extort the financial assets of new members, such as sleep deprivation, food deprivation, and corporal punishments. New members were forced to pray for hours upon hours and were subjected to blackmail, beatings, and more torture. Friends, she sounds insane. She definitely sounds like she's in charge of a cult. This is all giving very culty vibes, and it's really scary because who knew that that long ago that people were creating cults? But I guess it goes far back in time. I don't know. So she wouldn't just target anybody. It was always wealthy families. She targeted wealthy families because she felt that their estates would provide a fruitful income that could indefinitely maintain the convent financially. Her scheme was rather simple. More cult shit coming up, okay? When a wealthy member or a wealthy family joined the new Calendaris convent, they would be forced to enter an isolated life of devotion with little to no contact with their outside family or friends, because you want to rid yourself of your sinful life. Cult vibes, right? Every cult leader isolates their members from anybody who can have any influence on them. She's doing the same thing. Okay, so Mother Superior Mariam is still selling this whole, if you join, we'll provide you with free tuberculosis treatments. However, doctors were only permitted on site when they needed to sign death certificates. Dude, that's insane. She's just taking everybody's money and estates, and she's like, yeah, we're gonna treat you. But in all actuality, she just brought them there, probably threw them into a dark, dank room, and was like, yeah, you're just gonna stay here until you pass, and then I'll call Dr. So-and-so, and he'll sign off on this death certificate for you. We won't tell your friends, we won't tell your family, but I will have all of your jewelry. The estate is now in my name, and I have access to all of your bank accounts or your financial statements. So let's fast forward to a few years later. Now it's 1949, and rumors begin to spread about what is happening inside of the convent. It wasn't until 1950 that Mother Superior Mariam received the nickname Mother Rasputin, which means a person who exercises great but insidious influence. Yeah, that is not a good nickname. Mariam had been in charge for over a decade now before the authorities were informed of her wrongdoings, so to speak. Her evil acts, her crimes, Okay, so she was actually reported when a daughter of someone who just recently joined her convent reported that the deeds to her mother's land had been signed over to Mother Mariam. The daughter was shocked by this and stated that it seemed very uncharacteristic for her mother to sign over her deeds to this woman and not her own daughter. And she felt like her mom was under some type of duress, which made her do that. On December 4th, 1950, After a 10-year uninterrupted reign over the convent, police arrested Mariam Soulakiotis during a large-scale raid. 85 police officers spent 2 days searching the ground. And friends, listen to what they found. They rescued 46 children, along with a number of naked and malnourished elderly women who had been detained in the basement. The police also discovered the remains of over 170 bodies. Yeah, like, what the heck was going on there? Because that's a lot of bodies. So, her trial began on September 4th, 1951. And Mariam surprisingly didn't face any charges related to the abuse or deaths of the followers. The police also found $750,000 in cash in her possession, and Mariam held the deeds to over 300 farms and houses, but would not be prosecuted for this either. Like, what kind of lawyer does she have? Because with all of the evidence that the police found at this convent, how was she not found guilty of any of this? And just by having all of those deeds for 300 farms and houses, that right there, like, what did you do to make all these people or all these families sign over their deeds to you? Either her lawyer was just really good or the other lawyer was just really bad. So, no one knows the exact number of deaths that she caused, but authorities thought that 177 people's deaths from lethal lung infections were the result of negligent homicide. Another 27 are rumored to have been murdered. Rumors spread that she had killed upwards of 500 people. Of course, no one but Mariam actually knows the exact number. Prosecutors also believe that they could not secure a conviction related to the crimes. The only sure conviction they could achieve was on the 2 counts of illegal business activities she had undertaken. Mariam, for all of the crimes that I just explained to you, Mariam only received 26 months in prison for illegally importing tires and exporting olive oil to Cyprus. Like, what a slap in the face to all of the victims and their families. So, although the court didn't find her guilty of any of her heinous crimes, the public and the media had condemned her as Mother Rasputin. Along with the considerable media attention, more people came forward with evidence against her. With this new testimony, the prosecutors were able to charge her with a number of new crimes. Mariam was accused of the murders of 1 monk and 3 nuns, as well as counts of embezzlement, forging wills, extortion, abuse, torture, and negligent homicide. After her second trial in February 1953, Mariam received a 10-year prison sentence to be served concurrently alongside her first sentence. That's still not enough time, but that's better than the sentence she received the first time. A third trial ensued shortly after her second sentencing, where she was given the 10 years, plus an additional 4 years for her crimes. Throughout the trial, Mariam maintained her innocence and called the case satanic fiction. Documents show that over 500 people signed over their property and later died on the monastery grounds. During the trial, the following information was presented. All right, friends, get ready. 2 couples were lured and forced into signing over their property before joining the monastery. 1 couple attempted to escape after finding out about the living conditions. Both couples died of starvation and were kept in rooms riddled with tuberculosis. Okay, so, let me tell you what tuberculosis is. Tuberculosis is a serious illness that mainly affects the lungs. The germs that cause tuberculosis are a type of bacteria, and it can spread when a person with the illness coughs, sneezes, or sings. This can put a tiny droplet with the germs into the air, which can infect someone else. So this spreads like pretty rapidly. And if you're healthy and you're in a room that's riddled with tuberculosis, that's freaking disgusting. And you're bound to get sick immediately. And that's actually that's a really twisted form of torture, because when you go into that room, you just know that you're going to your death, and it's just disgusting. One woman came specifically to the monastery after hearing it was a free treatment center for tuberculosis. It was said that due to its location in high altitude, the fresh oxygen would help cure the illness. When this woman arrived, she was locked into a room without any medical assistance or supervision. She died due to her illness and starvation. Lastly, 2 nuns were beaten to death as punishment for disobeying Mariam's orders. After the last trial in 1954, Mariam passed away at the age of 71 while she was still incarcerated. However, she was officially convicted of 7 murders. And despite the fact that her horrific deeds were made public, her followers continue to support her. Even as recently as 2019, friends, the convent is still operating and appears to be a safer, more typical convent. And some followers still hold the view that Mariam Soulakiotis was falsely accused, and she is someone to be praised. Oh my God. Listen, so when I first found out about this nun, I was like, I have to do it, because a serial killer nun, who's ever heard of that, right? I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me, your true crime bestie Tika, on another episode of Cold Blooded Serial. I appreciate you listening and diving into another wild story with me. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot if you could leave a rating or review. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow so you never miss an episode. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.